I was in Hipgnosis studio one afternoon and there was a knock at the door, and Richard Evans, who worked there, opened the door, and there stood this dumpy, fat man with a shaved head, which was obviously been shaved by himself. It was all kind of raggedy and all over the shop.
He said, "Oh, is Storm here?" And I said, "No, he's not. He's up at Abbey Road with Floyd." And I called Poe, and Poe came through and looked at him and said, "Sid, is that you?"
I said, "What can I do for you? Come in, come in." He said, "No, I have a band here." I said, No, they're not." I said, "Do you want to come in and have a cup of tea?" He said, No, and disappeared down the stairs. And of course, then he showed up at Abbey Road Studios and nobody recognised who he was.
Dave looked at me and grinned and went, "You haven't got it yet, have you?" And in that moment, I went, "Fuck me, it's Sid." That fat, bald bloke with the brown paper bag. And of course it was.
The last time I'd seen him, he was this, dark-haired, springy guy. And then suddenly there's this large, morose bloke.
People were tearful. It was such a sad sight, and he was obviously extremely discombobulated and didn't really know what was going on. But it was, what was magical for Pink Floyd, they were actually recording "Wish You Were Here" at the time he arrived. And so that was pretty weird.
Taking LSD is very dangerous because some people certainly fell by the wayside because there were casualties, for sure.
"Wish You Were Here" very, very well demonstrates the schism in Pink Floyd, coming as it did after Dark Side of the Moon, when it was over.
And this was Roger's sort of take on us being together as a pop group who were not really communicating with each other, and the absence of Sid, and a much more general theme of absence.
There's certainly a connection when you don't have a father figure. Storm and I were both single children. Roger Waters lost his father in the war. David Gilmour's parents decamped to America, and Sid Barrett's father died when he was 15. So it gave us a kind of camaraderie and an understanding. And Storm and I certainly, as individual souls, were joined at the hip like brothers. I loved him like a brother. We also understood that there was a lot of anger, especially in Roger, about the record business. So we were talking about absence of sincerity, about people being ripped off. And I think it was George Hardy who actually said, people get burned in this business all the time. And Storm said, "Why don't we set a man on fire? He's being burned."
And this is in the days before computer, so there was no fakery here.
The only way to set a man on fire and make it look for real was to set him on fire. We went to a place called Stunts Unlimited. Who wants to be on a record cover when we could be in Towering Inferno, they said. Like we were a couple of hippies who who? Pink Floyd, what? But there was one guy, Ronnie Rondell, and he said to me, "I understand exactly what you want to do, and what you want to do is probably one of the most dangerous fire stunts you can do because you're standing still and fire moves." We did it about 15 times in all, and I was begging him to keep going because I need, you never stop. You push to get the best shot. And then the last time, a breeze blew up as he caught fire, and the wind whipped round his head like that, enveloped him in flames, and bang, he was thrown to the ground. They sprayed the fire extinguishers, put him out, and he got up and he said, "That's it, I'm not doing any more of that. That is it, that's it." And he was all singed down the side of his face. The interesting thing about Ronnie Rondell, if you speak to him, he said, "I've done so many fire stunts in movies, and nobody remembers me for that, but everybody remembers me for Wish You Were Here."
It was also just an amazing thought of a man on fire, shaking the hands of another man, not being perturbed that he was on fire. So therefore the fire must be metaphorical. However, the fire wasn't metaphorical, it was real. So there was always an inner contradiction to this picture.
The guy who is upright in Mono Lake. He's really there. He held his breath for 3 minutes and he went up. And it was the most perfect shot. I even have goosebumps now thinking about it. It was the most perfect shot imaginable. Bang, and we had it. It's one of the shots of my life. The album cover, the story, the narrative is inside. So it suggested to Pink Floyd that perhaps we should put a black shrink wrap around it.
You can imagine being a record company having to deal with that and having to negotiate that. All right, yes, there'd be a small sticker on it with the name Pink Floyd on it. It's hardly going to sell a lot of records on that. And in fact, what's inside is some of his best work.
He's always off the wall, always different, always doing the unexpected. And I think that was very good for us.
I think that's sort of the peak of the work that Storm and Poe did with Pink Floyd, is that package is really beautiful, I think.